All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development 1100 C# programming class online for the summer 2023 semester, I've been going over some of the stuff that's in the book that we're going to use for the class, that being Murachs C# Programming 8th edition. And so far I've done chapters 1 and 2 and also the appendix at the end of the book. And now it's chapter 3, where in the last chapter we designed an invoice total form, and now we're going to add the code for it. All right, so we'll get a quick introduction to coding. We'll look at how to add code to a form, even though I've shown you that a little bit. Some more coding skills, and then how to run, test, and debug a project. A little longer chapter than the last one that we've had. Now, the first thing they discuss in here, it gets a little bit confusing because for whatever reason, the author decided to give you in here an introduction to object-oriented programming. Well, that's actually in chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 in the book. All right, but let's just talk about what this is. So imagine that wherever you're living right now, that across the street from wherever you're living was a really humongous field that was a few hundred acres in size. And a developer came in and bought that field to put houses on it and decided that there was going to be room for 100 houses. And from those 100 houses, they would have 5 different house plans, be some ranches, some 2 stories, etc. All right. Each one of those house plans could be looked at as being like the equivalent of what we will end up creating in C# that's called a class. And each house that's created from one of those house plans would be a house object. All right. And if you can just kind of keep that in mind, that's about all you should worry about right now. Okay. Now, in the program that we created, this one, you could look at it this way. We've got 4 label objects. These are all members of the label class. We've got 4 text box objects, and we've got 4 button objects. That's why this language, C# is an object-oriented programming language. Each time you create an object based off of a class, it's known as instancing or instantiation, and that's all mentioned in here. Each object that you create has properties and it has methods. And guess what? You already know that, even if you don't think you do. Because if you look in here, if you remember that when we did the clear, we said take these text boxes and set all their text properties to nothing. In addition, for this first text box, the one called subtotal, all right, for the subtotal text box, set that to set the cursor to go there by using the focus method. So what is this? Subtotal percent amount in total. Subtotal percent amount in total. I'm a little quirky that way. Okay. All right. Again, there'll be much, much, much more on object-oriented programming when we get to chapter 12. And that whole unit, chapters 12 through 16, will go all over classes, objects, properties, methods, and events. So if what I just gave you there as a real early, simple little prelude didn't make any sense, please don't let it bother you. All right. Now, when you work with these things, a lot of times you can use what's known as IntelliSense. You may have noticed this already. What do I mean? Well, let's show you. I'm going to go back to the program we're working on now. I'm going to go back to this clear routine, and I'm going to take this line that we put in, and I'm going to remove it. I'm going to put it back in again, but I want the IntelliSense to kick in. So if I say txt, notice I want it to go to subtotal. So there's the IntelliSense. It's telling me all the things I've got that start with txt. And if I click on the one that says subtotal, or double click, it puts it in there. Now, if I hit a period, the IntelliSense clicks in again. And it tells me these are all things that I can run on this. You'll notice there's a lot of things. The two that we'll use most often will be either text, like we have in here, or will be focus, which is what we want there. And now the IntelliSense is saying, hey, you really want to put a paren semicolon right there. And since you don't have it in yet, I'm going to flag it as an error. But if I wanted to accept what's in there, kind of in the shadowy look, I just hit the tab key and boom, it accepts it. All right. And that's pretty much what they're talking about in here. So class name dot member name. Well, the object we created, really, it was a text object, but text dot and then the member name. So again, we've done stuff like this already. All right. Like many other programming languages, C#, when you were working with forms like this, is known as an event-driven language. And what that means is that the program responds to events that happen to objects. Typically, that's going to mean when you wire these things up and we create these event handlers that are discussed right there, typically what that means is that what we want to have happen is when a button is clicked, we want some kind of an action to occur. Now, you can put event handlers on just about anything, but what we want here is to put some event handlers on our subtotal. Really, that's what it is. All right. Now, when you do this, it says this is what's happening behind the scenes. This button exit.click, so don't worry about it. All right, so these are some of the events for which you can put code. They're not the only ones. We're going to look at many of these as the semester goes on. Now, how to add code to a form? Well, let's think about this first of all. Okay. There's the exit button that they're highlighted there. So the object or the name of the button is btn exit. The event that you want to add code for is the click event. So it is the exit button's click event. The way that you delineate between the two is you put an underscore in between. Now, if you just double click on the button, that's what comes up anyway. So you don't have to worry about putting it up yourself or typing it in yourself. All right. How IntelliSense helps you enter code for a form? Well, yeah, you can use that. You've seen some of it already anyway. All right. Let's think about this for a minute. Okay, let's think about this. All right. So let's see. Well, if we run this program here, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit in the book, but that's okay. So if we come in here, this is the only place in which we're able to enter information. And these should be numbers. So whatever I put in there should be a number. However, whatever you enter in there for text is not a number. It's what's known as a string. It's a string of text. So we want to check when we come in here to calculate to make sure what's in here is actually a number. What do I mean? Let me show you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say if what we put into that subtotal was empty. So I'm going to say if txt subtotal dot total dot text dot trim, which means remove any beginning or ending spaces. If that's equal to nothing, all right, well, I could do different things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a message box that says, hey, this can't be empty. So I'm going to say MSG box. All right, so message box dot show, and I want a message, and I want the title of that message to be no input in text box. All right, and then I'm going to put in here, I'll put it over 2 lines so you can read it. All right, and I'm going to say, you must enter a number here. All right, for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, what doesn't it like? So it doesn't like my message box. It says it does not exist in this context. Okay, so look again and notice we've got IntelliSense. It's telling me I can either go here and click this, or I can go here and click Show Potential Fixes. I'm going to click here, and it says, we don't have anything that says message box. What does that mean? Well, maybe it's message box. That's the problem. I spelled it wrong. All right. Now, there's also other things that I can put in here, just so you know. All right. What do I mean? I can add an icon here. I'm asking a question, or I'm giving a statement, so I can say message box. Let's just put in here an OK button. All right. And let's also put in here an icon. And that icon will say what? It's not an error. It's really information. So information. Okay. So I'm going to save this and run it. And I'm going to leave what's in that box blank. And I'm going to hit calculate. So notice what I get. I get a thing that says, oh, I did it backwards. Okay. This one should have been first. So let me fix that. Then we'll run it again. Sorry about that. I did it backwards. All right, so we'll leave that here so you can see all of it. So let me do a file, save all, and let me run it again. Okay, so there's nothing in there. Even if I put some spaces in, the trim will remove the spaces. Now it says no input in text box. That's this. And then it says you must enter a number here. That's this. Then it says OK. That's this. And then it says the icon is information. That's this. So probably when I click this, I also want my cursor to go right there. So let's add that as well. So I'm going to say txt subtotal.focus, and then I'm done. There's nothing more to do, so I'm going to say return. So let's see if that works. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop the run and start the run again. I'm putting nothing in there. I'm hitting enter. It says you must enter a value. Let's see if my cursor goes back to here. It does. And I'm ready to enter something in again. If I do it again, the same thing will happen. Now, if I type in this, I don't get an error, but technically that's not a number. All right. So what I can do is I can check to see whether or not this is a number. All right. So I can come in here and say else if t let's see. Well, I'm stumping myself. I was working with another language earlier, so let's see. There we go. Okay. So what I want to do is, if this is numeric, I want to put it into its own little holder that's going to hold the number. So I'm going to come in here and say this. If you don't get it, we're going to go over all this stuff real slow in class. But I'm going to put in here double. You have to spell double, right? Double subtotal equals 0.0. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I want to tell it to do exactly what was shown right here. You say, I don't know what you mean. You will in a second. Okay. All right. I want to do a double dot try parse. I don't want this txt foo. I want that txt subtotal. All right. And I want to put the results into subtotal. All right. Now, I expect probably very little of that to make sense to you. What this is saying is try to take whatever value we put in there, all right, into that text box that's called txt subtotal, and attempt to parse or convert it over to a double, which is a number that can hold a decimal place. It can hold a decimal place. If you can do it, put the result into here. And if you can't do it, well, we're going to do the same kind of thing we did up here. We're going to say, not you must enter a number here. All right, I'm going to put non-numeric input is illegal. And then here we'll just put non-numeric input. And here we're going to, not only are we going to set the focus, but we got junk in there. So let's clear out the junk. So subtotal.text equals nothing. All right. So now we've checked two things that could be wrong in here. Okay, let's double check, no pun intended. But the first one was, if we put nothing in there and we click calculate, you must enter a number. Okay. Now, if we put garbage in there, we're getting non-numeric input. Illegal. All right. We're almost there where we can start working on this. But what if we put in a negative number? Or if we put in 0? So else, if now we've got our value, it's in this subtotal thing. Okay. I think we can use this. Let's see. Well, we're going to find out. So otherwise, if the number is less than or equal to 0, we'll again put this in. There are better ways of doing it. I'm being very verbose, very wordy here, because I want to show you what's going on. Here we're going to put down out of range input. And I'll just put here OOR input. All right, so let's see if it takes that. This might be wrong, but I don't think it is. So I'm going to put in here negative 45. Out of range input. And we cleared it out. Okay? All right. What we're going to do is, just so we've got a number in here, we're going to put and assume we've got a discount percent for everybody of 10%. So I'm going to put a value in there. All right. And that value that I'm going to put in there is going to be 10%. So it's going to be 0.1. In fact, let's just put it in as 10%. So right there, I'm going to put text in there that says 10%. And there it is. All right. Now, I will have a subtotal, and I want to multiply that by 10%. Okay? Because if my total is $500, 10% of that would be a discount of $50. Okay? Hopefully you're following along with my math here. All right, so otherwise here we've got this. Okay, I'm going to come in here and say double discount percent, which is what we just had, equals 0.1, which is 10%. All right, so now we'll come in here. Now we can do all the work we want to do here. And that is, let's see, we can say else. All right, and what do we want? Well, now we've got a valid value here and here, so we want a discount amount and a total. Okay, so what I showed you on here was we made these, got the wrong one up here. So what I've shown you on here, come on, there we go, is we've now got values for here and here. Let's make a value for here and one for here. Now we use double here, but let's use decimal, like a decimal value, a value with dollars and cents. And you notice that when I do that, I get errors here. Because when you use a decimal, you've got to put in the letter M at the end. I didn't make that rule up. So this will be decimal discount amount, and that'll be equal to 0.0 M for right now. We'll figure that out in a minute. And we'll have another decimal that's called total. And again, this is going to move in just a second. And that'll be 0.0 M. All right. Now you'll notice we're not using these yet, so that's why it's giving us these underline here. So else the discount amount is going to be equal to what? It's going to be equal to our subtotal times our discount percent. And then our total is going to be equal to our subtotal minus our discount amount. Okay, now we're almost done. But we have to take this value right there and put it in this text box here, and we have to take the total and put it in there. So let's do that. And we want it to be put in there in dollars and cents, so I put it in there in what's called currency format. Don't know what happened here, but something did. Get rid of that gook that's right here. Okay, and then finally, txt total is equal to total.toString C. All right, so what is goofed up here? Something is, we'll fix it in a moment. You don't have to line these up again. I'm just doing it because I'm weird that way. And that's dot text. That's why I got an error there. Okay, believe it or not, the program's done. Let's run it and take a look at it. Again, whoops, tell me I got errors. So let's fix the errors first of all. Oh, this can't be a double anymore. I made it into a decimal. That's why I'm getting that error. Okay. So you've already seen this as far as when we put nothing in there, we get a message that says you must enter a number here. If we put in something non-numeric here, we get a different message that says non-numeric input illegal. All right. If we put in a negative number or 0, we get out of range input. So what if we put in 500? Play computer here. That's our subtotal. 500 times 10% should put a 50 right here. 500 minus 50 should put 450 right here. Let's see if that happens. And there you go. And now we can clear and start it all over again. 1234.56. And again, with our discount percent being 10%, and I don't want to clear that out anymore, so I'll fix that in a moment. All right. So then this should be $123.46, and then whatever the subtraction is. Okay. So the only thing I don't want to do is back here in my clear routine, I don't want to clear out the discount percent. I want that to stay in there. I can remove it, or if I, oops, what happened there? That wasn't good. Okay. Well, I've got subtotal. All right. So this was subtotal discount percent. This is discount amount. Again, that's dot text. All right, so right now if I run this and I put in a number here, okay, but when I click clear, I don't want this to be removed, but now it is being removed. So let's fix that. And I can either just remove this line for the discount percent, or I can comment it out. 2 forward slashes comments out the current line. So let's see if that fixed it. All right. So now when I click clear, that 10% stays there. All right. Now, we're not always going to want a 10% thing, but for what we're working on now, that works just fine. So it's not a real long program. It's about 90 lines. But hopefully it gave you the chance to see how all this stuff kind of works in action together. All right, this one I might as well close, I guess. We'll just leave the other one open. All right. So the event handlers, they wanted you to put code into the calculate. All right, and this is actually what they wanted. So they wanted the percent. If you were spending over $500, they wanted your discount percent to be 20%. If it was between $250 and $500 or under $500, 15%, and between $100 and $250, they wanted that to be 10%. All right, this is the same stuff we've already done. So let's fix ours so it looks like what's in here, because mine says it's 10% all the time. So let's fix that. All right, where it's got equal 10%, I'm just going to leave it blank, set it to 0 for right now. All right, and right now, this is where we're doing our magic here. Okay, so let's come up here, and instead of having that magic and just doing it like this, all right, let's come in here and do this. So, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 500, then our discount percent is equal to 20, which is 0.2 M. All right. Otherwise, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 250, and the subtotal, which I spelled wrong, is less than 500, let's fix that, then the discount percent is equal to 15. All right. M. Otherwise, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to 100 and the subtotal is less than 250, then our discount percent is equal to 10%. Like that. All right, so that's now handled all of it. All right, no else in here. So let's see. That's all fine. Now I can also come back and do this. Take that. So let's look. Save all. Run this. All right, if it's greater than or equal to 500, this shouldn't be like this anymore. I want to get rid of that. So let me get rid of that. I don't want anything to be in there at all. But we had hard-coded that value in previously. So this, I'm going to remove the 10%. Okay, now let's run it. I don't know if I manually put that value in there or not, so we'll find out. So let's see. 1,000 should get 20%, and they are. That's 200 and 800, but I didn't add that. So let's put that in there. And what do I mean here? Well, here we're printing out all the values. Right there. So we've got the discount amount, the total, etc., but we don't have the percent. So TXT discount percent, that's equal to the discount percent, and we want that to not be in dollar signs, but we want that to be as a percent. And again, that must be .text, Jeff. All right, equals discount percent dot to string as a percentage. Let's see now if it works. Again, we'll put in 1,000. This should say 20%. This should say 200. This should say 800. And it does. Now, if I make this $400, this should now be 15. This should be 60. And this should be 340. And it is. If I say $200, then this should be 10%. This should be 20, and this should be 180. And you'll notice that it is. So right now, everything appears to be working. Okay? Now they give you some best practices here for working with this stuff, such as use spaces to separate words, use exact, this is a case-sensitive language, end each statement with a semicolon, put blocks of code in between curly braces. This is all stuff you'll see as we go on in here. All right? We're going to have a whole chapter later that's on errors. Syntax errors are errors in language. So things like forgetting to put a semicolon in is a syntax error. The good news is the compiler finds those right away and puts the errors down here. All right, there's also something that are called runtime errors. You don't discover those until you run the program. All right, and there's a logic error. That typically means you meant to do A, but you accidentally did B in your program. We'll look at all of those. All right. It would have been totally legit to write that last program like this. The computer could care less about your white space here. You use the white space for the ease of the reader, the person looking at the code. Okay? Comments I've already talked about with you. A multi-line comment starts with a / and then it has a asterisk and it ends with an asterisk and another / Single line comments are / and if you do a single line comment, then anywhere from the / over to the right is now commented out. Comments are used to create what is called internal documentation. All right, the text editor toolbar. Kind of a neat feature that they have here. So if I decided, as an example, that I wanted to take this code, maybe I was having a problem with it, and I wanted to comment all of it out. There's 3 ways that I can do it. All right, I'm going to uncomment in just a second, but first I could come in here and do this, and then do this, and then would comment all of it out, and it comments it all out at one time. Nothing wrong with doing that. Totally fine. All right, or I could come up to each line that's in here and do a / / etc. and do that to each line. I could do that. Or there's a shortcut, and that is to highlight all of this and go up here and way towards the end here. Notice comment out the selected lines or uncomment the selected lines. So if I click the first one, it comments everything out at one time. If I change my mind, click the one next to it, and it uncomments everything at one time. Kind of a nice feature. You can expand and collapse regions of code. So for instance, if I didn't want this to show right now, I could click this minus sign here. The code's still there, but it's just not showing. So I could do this and really cut down the size of my code. All right, it's all still there, but it's being hidden. And you can always tell it's hidden because it's got a plus sign, where if it's not being hidden, it's a minus sign. So I can just click on the plus sign, and boom, now everything is showing again. Well, almost everything. code snippets I'm not going to go over. I will in class. I don't like them. You can use them if you want. And we will go over refactoring code in class as well. Sometimes it's a nice thing. Sometimes it confuses the heck out of people. I've already shown you how to run, test, and debug a project. So we've already talked about this. And that pretty much is it for the third chapter. All right. So our next chapter will be in the next section on C language essentials. In Chapter 4, we'll go over basic arithmetic operations. Chapter 5, we'll do selection and iteration statements. Chapter 6, we'll do methods and event handlers. Chapter 7, we'll do data validation. Chapter 8 will be arrays and collections. Chapter 9 will be dates and strings. Chapter 10 will be additional skills. And Chapter 11 will be more on debugging. So what I'm going to do is take myself a little break here and then come back and we will go through Chapter 4. I'll be back with that shortly.